what can we learn from our competitors to impact our business for next year? So it's fairly similar, and I apologize if a lot of these questions are kind of similar minded, but it was more of let's kind of look back. And at least for me, it's kind of understanding or watching, whether it's you're on social media and kind of checking in on your competitors and kind of see what they're doing and see what kind of things that you like, oh, that makes sense. I kind of like how that does. And you kind of take pieces from different people. And if you have the bandwidth to do it, kind of try to then use the things that you liked in your own marketing efforts, whether it's on social media. It's going to be kind of hard to go through and look through somebody else's Google AdWords and kind of see, but you can kind of see where they're popping up if you're putting in keywords and then look at who's ranking where and kind of understand like, okay, this is what was kind of listed within their SEO type stuff. So I'll pitch this up to you. What can we learn from our competitors?
I think that what you said was extreme. A lot of people look at it like, I'm not going to copy my competitors. And I'm not saying you should copy people directly, but if you're seeing something that a competitor seems to be growing, they seem to be doing well, and you've seen some of their advertising, or you see some of the things they're doing, maybe they're advertising on the radio. Who knows? Regardless, I mean, if you've noticed it and you feel like it's working for them, there's nothing wrong with taking notes of that and integrating something similar into your own business. I mean, a good example of this that everybody can relate to is, McDonald's, the restaurant, had historically spent millions and millions of dollars, probably tens of millions, maybe into the hundreds of millions of dollars, doing geographic studies to know exactly where to place each restaurant. So they had the whole country mapped out into where the ideal places to put a McDonald's would be at. And they spent enormous amounts of money to do that, so that their restaurants would always be in an ideal placement. Well, Burger King spent none of that money. They just decided that, now again, Burger King is struggling a little bit right now, but I'm talking back in the day when the two of those were really fighting with each other. Burger King spent none of that money. Their strategy was, wherever a McDonald's gets built, we're going to put a Burger King across the street. So they let McDonald's basically figure it all out, and then they just built a Burger King across the street, which is why to this day, you probably will notice whenever you see a McDonald's, a lot of times you'll see a Burger King very close by. That being said, there's nothing wrong with watching what your competitors are doing and taking pointers from that. I think what I would avoid doing is like direct copycat type campaigns. I mean, you need to be unique. You need to be true to you. If somebody's running a 10% off, or the 10 days of Christmas sale items or whatever, you don't want to then launch a 10 days of Christmas sale item on your end, because it's just going to look cheesy. It's going to look like you're copying them. But taking hints from that, of like 10-day of Christmas type of sale thing, and how that's allowing them to be in front of people for 10 straight days, there's something to be learned from that, and you could potentially modify that and do something for your business. So I do think you should, you can learn what's good from your competitors, and if they're making mistakes, you can potentially learn from their mistakes and try to avoid those things as well. I think the big thing I would say is you never want to get, Gary Vee. I know we're both fans of Gary Vee. He talks a lot about, don't get too high on the compliments and don't get too low on the criticism. So, kind of like, when things are going well for you, don't think that you've got it all figured out and everything like that. And when things aren't going well, don't be too hard on yourself. Constantly be looking for ways that you can improve. And if that's even learning something from your competitors, that's good. I think a lot of people feel like that's somehow copping out, like they should be so smart, they shouldn't have to look at their competitors or whatever. But you know what? I think it's just smart to do. And if nothing else, just learn. Maybe they're not doing a good job at all, and you can just learn things you don't want to do. But not paying attention to your competitors, I think, is not. I don't think that's a wise strategy.
No, I agree. I think a lot of times people that I would talk to, whether it's they're too proud to look at their competitors, it's no, that's kind of a disgust thing. And it's like, just like you said, you should be, whether it's seeing what they're doing good, but absolutely seeing what they're doing bad, so that you don't repeat those same patterns, whether it's just the stuff when you flip through, whether it's TikToks or Instagram or whatever, and it's you notice things like, oh, that's cringe, or I don't want to deal with that, at least then that gives you the idea of like, okay, these are things I shouldn't do. And even if it's not your competitors too, you could start noticing different things like, I didn't like how that looked, or I didn't like how they phrased that. I would say something different. And especially if it's in the similar industry as yours, I think those are things that kind of take a note and be like, okay, that's something I should make sure that I'm not doing, or this is something I should be doing. I liked how this looked. I like the background. I like the music or whatever that would be. So I think kind of understanding all that is key.
And you have to be true. You have to be true to yourself. I mean, the reason I say that, you mentioned music, and that's why I immediately went to, and I'm thinking, if you're in your mid 40s or early 50s and, you tend to like more classic rock or whatever the case may be, and your competitors in their mid 20s and they're playing hip hop or something like that on their reels or whatever, you can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to start putting hip hop on my reels, because if it's not true to who you are, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel pressed. It's going to feel true to your. So you always got to figure out what's true to you. I mean, and that's going to resonate with a certain group of people if you're true to yourself. It's never a good idea to copy people, especially if it's not true to who you are. If you're trying to put on a face of something that you're not, it's typically going to backfire on you. So paying attention to your competitors, yes. Trying to copy them because you feel like what they're doing is good and you're doing things that aren't true to who you are. No, don't do that.
No, I'm laughing here because I thought of a phrase that me and my buddy had. Granted, it was related to dating, but I guess essentially if you're trying to get a customer, it's a very similar relationship, but desperation is a very stinky cologne. So just make sure that you're not trying to do too many things and people are going to notice like, okay, this guy's being fake. I don't like how he's doing that. So just like you said, be authentic, be yourself, and you're going to attract the right customers that are probably going to have a relationship with you in the future, which is kind of what you're looking for.
Because here's the thing, if you aren't true to yourself and somebody comes to your shop or invites you out for a quote or whatever the case may be with your business, and then you arrive and they realize the reality is disconnected from what they saw online or in marketing, you're immediately going to start that relationship with a little bit of a disconnect and a little bit of a question. So you've put yourself in a hole before you've even got started, because now they have questions about you and what you represent and who you are, because you've created a situation where your reality does not match what you've projected.